In the death zone of the Himalayas, when a Sherpa tells you to turn back, you listen. Their warnings are the difference between coming home and becoming another frozen statistic. Today, we're examining a personal injury lawyer who thought he could argue with the mountain and discovered that some verdicts can't be appealed. It was April 22nd, 2016, on Pumori, Nepal's 23,494-foot Everest's daughter, that rises like a deadly pyramid across the valley from the world's highest peak. Pumori's deceptive beauty masks one of the most technically demanding climbs of the Khumbu region. Steep ice walls, hanging glaciers, and avalanche-prone couloirs that have claimed dozens of lives. The mountain's southwest face is a maze of seracs and crevasses, while its summit pyramid requires technical ice climbing skills that separate amateur adventurers from serious mountaineers. Spring conditions in 2016 had been particularly unstable, with unusual warming patterns creating dangerous snow loading on the upper slopes. Nicholas Bennett was 33, a personal injury attorney from Miami who had built a successful practice representing victims of corporate negligence and medical malpractice. His career was built on finding flaws in expert testimony, challenging professional opinions, and never accepting the first answer he was given. He had earned millions by proving that supposed experts were wrong, that safety protocols had been ignored, and that those in authority positions often made fatal mistakes. His legal training had taught him to question everything, verify all claims, and never trust someone else's judgment without independent confirmation. Nicholas had discovered mountaineering 3 years earlier and approached it with the same methodical precision he used in the courtroom. He spent months learning proper rope techniques, practiced knots and belaying systems religiously, and could handle technical climbing equipment as well as most guides. He had genuine respect for mountain dangers, having read extensively about altitude sickness, hypothermia, and avalanche mechanics. During climbs, he was known as a reliable team player who helped others with gear problems and followed proper safety protocols. The Pumori expedition represented the culmination of careful preparation and training. Nicholas had studied weather patterns, route descriptions, and accident reports with the same thoroughness he brought to legal cases. His technical skills were solid, his equipment was top quality, and his understanding of mountain hazards was comprehensive. What he lacked was the ability to accept expert advice that he couldn't personally verify through his own research and analysis. He was paired with Tenzin Norbu, a 42-year-old Sherpa from Namche Bazaar whose family had been guiding climbers for 3 generations. Tenzin's father had died in an avalanche on Cho Oyu in 1987, and his grandfather had been among the first Sherpas to work with early Everest expeditions in the 1950s. Tenzin himself had summited Pumori 23 times and possessed an almost supernatural ability to read the mountain's moods. He could predict weather changes hours before they appeared on forecasts, identify unstable snow conditions from subtle visual cues, and sense when the mountain was dangerous. From the beginning, he treated Tenzin with professional courtesy, but maintained the skeptical mindset that had made him successful in law. He questioned Tenzin's assessments, asked for explanations of his reasoning, and cross-referenced everything against his own research. Nicholas made it clear that he wouldn't accept advice without understanding the logic behind it. On April 21st, Tenzin conducted his evening assessment at Camp 2, a precarious platform carved into the mountain's southwest face at 19,800 feet. Throughout the day, he had observed troubling signs that his years of experience had taught him to recognize. The barometric pressure had dropped 8 millibars since the previous evening, a rate of change that indicated a major weather system approaching. Ice crystals were forming in hexagonal patterns on the tent walls, a sign of specific humidity and temperature conditions that preceded dangerous snow instability. Most concerning was the wind shift. For 3 days, prevailing winds had blown from the west at 15 to 20 miles per hour, but that afternoon they had shifted to come from the south at only 8 to 10 miles per hour. This change meant that snow was being deposited rather than scoured from the upper slopes, creating dangerous loading conditions in the couloirs above. Tenzin had also noticed the particular quality of light that veteran Sherpas call avalanche light, a flat diffused illumination that indicates atmospheric conditions associated with snow instability. That evening, Tenzin gathered the 4-person expedition team and delivered his assessment with characteristic directness. He insisted they needed to descend to base camp the following morning because the mountain was not safe. Too much new snow and wind loading in the couloirs created very dangerous avalanche conditions for the next 2 days. Nicholas immediately began his cross-examination. He had been monitoring multiple weather sources throughout the day, and none of them supported Tenzin's assessment. His satellite communicator showed stable conditions for the next 48 hours, with decreasing winds and no precipitation forecast. The barometric pressure readings on his altimeter didn't match Tenzin's claims about rapid changes. He pulled out detailed meteorological data from 3 different sources, all contradicting Tenzin's warnings. Tenzin tried to explain what he was seeing, but Nicholas pressed him for specifics. How exactly did ice crystal patterns predict avalanches? What was the scientific basis for reading atmospheric pressure changes? Without instruments? Where was the peer-reviewed research supporting these traditional methods? He wasn't being disrespectful, but his legal training demanded evidence he could verify independently. The other expedition members, a doctor from Seattle and 2 climbers from Germany, supported Tenzin's assessment. Dr. Sarah Chen, who had climbed extensively in the Cascades, told Nicholas she had learned to trust local knowledge over weather applications. These guides knew things that couldn't be measured with instruments. Nicholas appreciated their perspective, but pointed out that anecdotal evidence wasn't sufficient for life or death decisions. In his legal practice, he had seen too many cases where so-called expert opinion was later proven wrong by objective data. He had built his career on challenging authority figures who claimed special knowledge without proper documentation, and he wasn't about to abandon that approach now. Just 2 years earlier on Denali, his guide had insisted on turning back due to bad feelings about the weather, only for conditions to remain perfect for 3 more days, costing Nicholas his summit attempt and $15,000 in expedition fees. The meteorological data was clear and consistent across multiple sources. Conditions were stable. Tenzin grew more insistent, explaining that weather forecasts didn't understand this specific mountain. He had been watching signs that indicated the snow was ready to slide, knowledge passed down through generations of guides. The couloir above Camp 3 was loaded with unstable snow that could avalanche with the slightest disturbance. Nicholas remained unconvinced. He respected Tenzin's experience, but traditional knowledge without scientific backing was essentially hearsay, the kind of testimony he routinely dismantled in court. In his profession, he would never accept claims that couldn't be corroborated by objective evidence or peer-reviewed research. His expensive avalanche safety course in Colorado had taught him to rely on snowpack analysis and weather data, not subjective interpretations. The data showed safe conditions. Multiple independent sources confirmed it, and he couldn't make decisions based on what might be cultural bias toward excessive caution or outdated methods that hadn't adapted to modern forecasting technology. When Tenzin refused to guide the team higher, stating firmly that he wouldn't take people to die, Nicholas announced he would continue alone. He had studied the route extensively, understood the technical challenges, and had the skills to handle the climb safely. His equipment was properly maintained, his physical condition was excellent, and the objective data supported proceeding. At 4:30 a.m. on April 22nd, Nicholas left Camp 2 alone, his headlamp cutting through the pre-dawn darkness as he climbed toward the technical sections above. Tenzin made one final attempt to stop him, grabbing his arm and pleading with him to reconsider. He asked Nicholas to think about his family back home, who wanted him to return safely. Nicholas paused for a moment, acknowledging Tenzin's concern. He thanked the guide for his dedication and recognized that Tenzin was acting from genuine care for his safety. However, he had analyzed all available data and couldn't find objective support for the warnings. He assured Tenzin he would be careful, monitor conditions constantly, and turn back at the first sign of actual danger. His GPS tracker showed him moving steadily upward at 6:45 a.m., maintaining a measured pace as he climbed through the lower technical sections. By 7 a.m., Nicholas had reached 21,500 feet and was approaching the steep couloir that Tenzin had specifically warned him about. The narrow gully, approximately 60 feet wide and 400 feet tall, funneled between 2 rock buttresses at a 50-degree angle. Recent storms had deposited nearly 4 feet of new snow in the couloir, creating a classic wind-loading scenario. As he began his approach to the couloir, he started noticing the subtle signs that Tenzin had tried to warn him about. The snow surface had a peculiar hollow sound when he stepped on it, different from the solid crunch he had experienced lower on the mountain. The wind had indeed shifted direction, as Tenzin had predicted, and Nicholas could see fresh snow deposits in sheltered areas that hadn't been there the day before. Most unsettling was the quality of light, that flat, diffused illumination that seemed to drain color from the landscape, exactly as Tenzin had described. For the first time since leaving Camp 2, Nicholas felt a flutter of doubt. The signs were exactly as Tenzin had predicted, but his instruments still showed stable conditions. He paused at the entrance to the couloir, remembering Tenzin's specific warning about wind-loaded snow in this exact location. The snow did look different here, deeper and more uniform than the wind-scoured surfaces he had been climbing through, but his weather data remained consistent, and turning back now would mean admitting that his scientific approach had been wrong. Besides, he was already this close to the summit, just a few more hours of climbing, and he would have the achievement he had trained years for. He then began climbing the couloir at 7:15 a.m., following crampon marks and fixed rope anchors left by previous expeditions. His GPS data, later recovered from his device, showed his pace slowing significantly as he gained elevation from 800 feet per hour to approximately 400 feet per hour. The snow felt firm initially, confirming his assessment that Tenzin's warnings had been overly cautious. At 7:23 a.m., approximately 200 feet up the couloir, Nicholas's weight triggered a catastrophic slab avalanche. The fracture line appeared instantaneously across the entire width of the gully with a sharp crack that echoed off the surrounding peaks like a rifle shot. Climbers at Camp 2, nearly 2,000 feet below, heard the distinctive sound and immediately knew what had happened. The avalanche began as a massive wall of snow that broke loose across the entire width of the couloir. The enormous slab of compacted snow began racing down the steep slope, quickly reaching deadly speeds. Nicholas, caught directly in the center of the slide, had no opportunity to escape or save himself as thousands of tons of snow engulfed him. Dr. Chen, watching through binoculars from Camp 2, later described seeing Nicholas climbing steadily up the couloir when suddenly the entire slope exploded. There was a sharp crack, and then the whole mountainside was moving. Nicholas disappeared instantly into a massive cloud of snow and debris. The initial impact knocked him unconscious as he was engulfed by the moving slab. His body was subjected to tremendous rotational forces as the avalanche debris tumbled him violently down the mountain. The moving wall of snow and debris carried him like a rag doll, his body spinning and tumbling at tremendous speed. His helmet was ripped from his head, his ice axe torn from his grip, and his backpack completely stripped away. As he tumbled through the avalanche, his spine compressed and twisted under the enormous forces. His legs were bent backward at impossible angles as the debris flow carried him over rock, outcrops, and ice formations. The sound of bones breaking was lost in the thunderous roar of the avalanche as both femurs snapped, his pelvis crushed under the immense pressure, and his left arm was nearly severed at the shoulder. The avalanche continued for nearly 2 minutes, carrying Nicholas 1,200 vertical feet down the mountain before finally coming to rest in a massive debris field covering an area the size of 3 football fields. He was buried beneath 8 feet of avalanche debris that had set like concrete around his body, making movement impossible. His airways were completely packed with snow and ice that had been forced into his mouth, nose, and throat by the tremendous pressure. He regained consciousness approximately 5 minutes after the avalanche stopped, finding himself in complete darkness and unable to move any part of his body. The immense weight of the snow above him made breathing impossible. He could feel the crushing weight against his broken ribs and the snow packed tightly around his face. The cold was immediate and penetrating, and the darkness was absolute. In those terrifying moments of consciousness, every sign that Tenzin had warned about had been present. The wind shift, the snow loading, the atmospheric conditions, even the quality of light. Nicholas's instruments had measured surface conditions, but Tenzin had been reading the mountain's deeper moods, the subtle interactions between wind, snow, and terrain that no satellite could detect. His legal training, which demanded objective proof, had blinded him to a form of expertise that couldn't be quantified, but was absolutely real. He tried desperately to move his head, to clear even a small air pocket around his face, but the snow was packed too tightly. His broken ribs sent waves of agony through his chest with each attempted breath, and he could taste blood in his mouth from internal injuries. The weight pressing down on him was enormous. Thousands of pounds of compacted snow that made even the smallest movement impossible. His legs had no sensation, likely due to his severed spinal cord, but he could feel the crushing pain in his chest and the burning sensation in his lungs as oxygen levels dropped. The subsequent examination revealed the full extent of Nicholas's traumatic injuries. His cervical spine had been completely severed between two spine bones. The bones in his neck had been broken and displaced, cutting through his spinal cord like a knife. This injury would have caused instant paralysis from the neck down, meaning he couldn't move his arms or legs during his final minutes of consciousness. 7 ribs were fractured, with several having punctured both lungs, causing them to collapse and fill with blood. A condition called pneumothorax that made breathing nearly impossible, even without the snow obstruction. His skull showed multiple fractures from impacts with rocks during the avalanche, including a depressed fracture of the temporal bone that had caused severe brain bleeding. Both legs had compound fractures, meaning the broken bones had pierced through his skin and muscle tissue. His pelvis was completely crushed, with the hip bones shattered into multiple fragments that had damaged internal organs. Most significantly, his mouth, nose, and throat were packed solid with snow and ice, creating a complete airway obstruction that prevented any oxygen from reaching his lungs. Nicholas remained conscious for approximately 8 minutes, experiencing the terrifying reality of being buried alive while his body shut down from massive trauma and oxygen starvation. As his brain was deprived of oxygen, his vision faded and his thinking became confused. His final thoughts were of his family and the devastating realization that Tenzin had been completely right about every warning he had given. The search for Nicholas began when he failed to check in via radio at his scheduled 9 a.m. contact time. However, the avalanche debris field was too unstable for immediate search operations. Rescue teams were forced to wait 18 hours for conditions to stabilize before beginning probe operations. When the search finally commenced, rescue teams located Nicholas's body after 8 hours of methodical searching and required 6 hours of careful excavation to free him from what had become essentially a concrete tomb. The investigation revealed that Tenzin's assessment had been completely accurate. Snow scientists confirmed that the slide had been triggered by exactly the conditions Tenzin had warned about. Wind loading had created an unstable slab layer over a weaker foundation, and Nicholas's weight had provided the disturbance needed to fracture the entire slope. In the aftermath of Nicholas's death, his family struggled to understand how their brilliant, methodical brother had made such a fatal error in judgment. His parents, who had always been proud of his analytical mind and legal success, found themselves questioning whether the very traits that had made him successful had ultimately cost him his life. Tenzin continued guiding on Pumori, but instituted a policy of absolute authority regarding safety decisions. His standard briefing became clear: if Sherpa says no, the answer is no. The mountain doesn't care about evidence, logic, or professional credentials. Nicholas Bennett's death on Pumori proved that some expertise cannot be cross-examined, and that ignoring the warnings of those who know the mountains best can turn professional skepticism into a fatal flaw. His refusal to accept Tenzin's knowledge cost him his life on a mountain that demands respect for wisdom that cannot be measured by instruments or verified through data. Thanks for watching. If you like these stories, click here